Okay, we'll call this meeting on Wednesday, November 17th, 2021 of the Civil Service Commission. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jasny?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Mr. Neese?
Here.
Has the commission had time to look over the minutes of the previous meeting of October 29th?
Yes.
Good with them, Paul?
Yeah, I have a question. Were there any appeals on the test?
One that we'll have today.
Well, two, I guess,
Well,
right?
two, yeah.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 29th?
Yeah, I move we accept the minutes from the previous meeting.
A second.
Roll call. Mr. Jasny?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Okay. Public participation? Mr. Pfeiffer?
Good morning, Commission. Matthew Pfeiffer,
Good morning.
representing the Ohio Patrolmen's Benevolent Association patrol officers. I see on new business is the Sergeant promotional exam request for the release of the full list. I'm going to speak briefly on that. This issue comes down to two key things: fairness and transparency in the promotion process. The assertion that by releasing that full list, the commission is violating our collective bargaining agreement it's absurd. Okay, I spoke with the two members that negotiated that language of the rule of 5 with the list in alphabetical order, and there was nothing that limited what the commission does. There are two lists: the rule of 5 with the alphabetical list of the top 5 candidates that is submitted to the appointing authority, being the chief of police, to prevent any type of not knowing and him having and making a fair assessment based on those 5 candidates. There's also a full eligibility list that is also certified by the commission that civil service rules dictate is available for public inspection. All we're asking is to follow the civil service rules and regulations, which is part of our collective bargaining agreement, that both parties shall follow the civil service rules and regulations in regards to promotions. The reason for asking this, I shouldn't need to provide a reason, but scoring inconsistencies that we found with the current test that we'd like to double check. Scoring errors that we were made aware of for the entrance exam where people were failed that actually passed. We also found lawsuits in Cincinnati, the state of Michigan, of scoring inconsistencies with ergometrics, in which they actually admitted in Cincinnati for their promotional exam that they messed up the scores and gave wrong ranks. So at this point, I'm asking for a review. I don't think it's unreasonable at this time based on that. And then finally, the previous eligibility list that I was provided freely through a public records request that provided all the scores. So I just don't see what the issue with asking for the same document again for the current promotional exam, but I just don't see the issue with it. Thank you.
Mr. Brown? Hold up, man. Were you requested to provide a list of the sergeants, the certified list that we concluded last meeting?
Correct. Mr. Pfeiffer did reach out to me and ask for a full spreadsheet of all of the scores for all of the candidates. And in discussion with Mr. Maestros, that list was not provided to Mr. Pfeiffer, on the grounds of the ability to keep the test fair. The commission certified the second list so that we don't have to come back to the commission every time the chief needed to make a move if someone came off of the top 5. That was the purpose of that. Also, Mr. Pfeiffer's allegations of scoring, I sat with the commission at our last meeting in executive session, went through the scoring. Everyone understood the scoring, understood what how the scoring was calculated. That was shared with Mr. Pfeiffer as well, and in his email, he stated that he felt more comfortable knowing that the commission had done that. And so I'm not really sure where this has come from. 2018, I guess the list was provided to him, but according to everything I have read in the CBA and in the civil service rules, our previous HR director or whomever provided that list to him was incorrect in doing so. The purpose of the public certifying of the list is to publicly certify the top 5 names. And as I explained to Mr. Pfeiffer, giving you the list would mean I would have to give that list also to Chief Mason. Then there comes into the fact of the process itself being tainted, which is the very thing that he is trying to say needs to not happen. And so we're just trying to avoid all of that. We have no problem. The top 5 list came out. As we release additional names, as they are requested by the chief, as movement is done in the top 5, I have no problem providing those names to Mr. Pfeiffer. However, I just feel, and again, based on everything I have read and in discussion with the Maestros, we don't have the requirement to release the full list to the union. And again, it's up. We don't have I guess, and Dave, I guess we'll talk a little more about it. This is up to you guys. If the commission feels, hey, release the full list, that's what we'll do. But then comes into the effect of, well, is now the process as fair as it was before? Because now it can be said, well, the chief knows someone is at number 10. And if, quote unquote, he wants to get to that person now, here's his opportunity to do so. Keeping the list at 5 and releasing those 5 names, and then the movement of the 5 allows that not to happen, and to really keep the test fair and consistent. But I'll let Mr. Maestro go into more detail in regards to that. That's just my opinion.
If there are commission rules that state the full list should be released upon request,
I'd like to see them if there are.
Right.
On page 13,
X, eligibility lists, A, preparation of lists.
Eligibility lists?
Yes, that applies to all eligibility lists.
Eligibility lists?
Yes.
Versus promotional, which is section 12, starts promotional, and that's what
Correct.
we're talking about. Eligibility list is much different than a promotional exam. It just is. We all know that. We can't confuse the two, and you can't take bits and pieces from one section and apply them to another. An eligibility list is different than a promotional exam. Again, I just want to say, I don't care, okay? Mr. Pfeiffer's assertion that everybody is on the same page on this is false. I sent an email out to everybody that took this test yesterday saying, your union contract says the top 5 shall be released alphabetically. Those words have to have some meaning. Why would they want it listed alphabetically? Why wouldn't they get the top 5 in rank? And why does it just say top 5 alphabetically? So the chief or the person making the appointment doesn't know who's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. All right? If they wanted the entire list released, it would say the entire list. It's their issue, it's your issue. If you release this entire list, I'm telling you right now, I am sure there's going to be members of this union that are going to say, you violated the CBA, because it says only the top 5 alphabetically. I sent it out yesterday. I didn't get one person that said, yeah, I think the entire list should be released, other than Mr. Pfeiffer, who initially made the request. So that being said, it's this commission's decision, but you do not have a rule. Do not have a rule that says a promotional list gets released in its entirety. You have a rule in their contract that says top 5 only, and the civil service rules are silent on that. Other than, when you look at it for fire, it talks about the rule of 3 instead of 5. That's what police changed.
changed it to
Yeah.
5.
They accept 5 instead of 3. But a promotional exam is different than an entrance exam. The entrance exam gets released because you have people from all over the state or all over the country or all over wherever that took that exam. that want to see where they're at, and there's plenty of language in there about how the identity of the individual shall be concealed, and it shall be by number, and nobody shall know names associated with tests and everything else. It goes to great lengths promoting that. But, again, I mean, if it's this commission's desire to say, we're going to release this entire list, you can do that. We don't care, other than I think it violates that section of the contract, and we'll have to deal with that.
Paul, do you have any questions?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Are you're not questioning the way we calculated the final grades, are you? Or my understanding of this is that you're questioning the company that gave the test and graded the test and their results? Or are you questioning our results?
Partly. We just want a review of everything because some members have found inconsistencies in their scoring.
Yeah.
Based on ergometrics, information that I received from ergometrics, how they score their promotional exam.
So they've made mistakes in the past?
Yeah. And we're the result of lawsuits from other agencies, one specifically, a big one in Ohio, Cincinnati, where they admitted that they had scoring issues, and it was no fault of the city, it was ergometrics.
And releasing of the full list in order will fix what in that regard? I mean, what does that solve?
But have they had an opportunity to review the test and the scores and?
They're all received their individual scores. We had one candidate that did come in and review his test because he had some concerns that his erasures and changes in answer when he took the test weren't properly calculated, so he came in and reviewed his and had that opportunity and was satisfied at the end that it was properly scored as what he marked.
So they can do that? They can come in and see their test scores and the questions and the whole thing?
I think that was open, right? I mean, we had that period open 7 days. And we had one candidate that came in and did that.
And no one else reached out to me about the test. No one else other than Mr. Pfeiffer and the scores. Each candidate received a letter that provided their video score, their written score, their overall score, and their score with their seniority credit, and with the appeal language at the bottom of the letter. And this was the reason why we went through the scores with the commission at our last meeting in executive session, because I wanted to be sure. Because again, we understand that ergonomics made a mistake with our entrance exam. We understood that, and we wanted to make sure that that was not going to happen moving forward. And so my concern, I'm not sure releasing this list and having them check the scores, what they are even checking for, because how does the union calculate the video and written score? That information is provided to us from ergonomics. But again, as Dave said, if the commission wants to release the full list, that's up to them, but I'm in agreement with Mr. Maestros in regards to, I believe it violates the contract, and it taints the test. It taints the process.
Leonard?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all,
Yeah.
what section of your contract is that?
It is Article 38, Section 2.
Okay, thanks. And secondly, Mr. Mason, just for me to be clear, and I noticed you were saying the difference in examinations were promotional versus entrance. Are you referring to the language, here it kind of say the term promotional on page 16?
Right, beginning, yeah, section 12 or 13.
Right, which kind of segregates that from an entrance exam. Is that what you're referring to?
It is. I mean, an entrance exam, we have a rolling 10-person list, the top 10, and they work off that. And there's a number of factors that go in that. You get the score, and then they start doing backgrounds and PHQs to determine who they're going to hire. It's not known individuals in a class of patrolmen that are testing for a sergeant's exam in the same department.
Right. Well, you know, the only thing that grasps my attention is when it says that the list to be posted,
Where are you looking?
open on page 13. If it's an entrance exam, they're not employed yet. So you know what I'm saying? How would they have access to see that list?
So if I may answer, Mr. Taylor, that list, our entrance exam was posted on the civil service page of the mytwinsburg.com website.
We also posted in the lobby.
They also posted in the lobby. So those entrance exams are posted for the public to see. And we let our entrance exam candidates know that these are the places they are posted so that they can look and review that posting of their entrance exam eligibility list.
And back in the day, right, it used to be posted on the door to where you took the test or City Hall or...
Because now that I does see it's open to the public versus employees, inspection. Okay, I just want to get clear on that thing.
And also, back in the day, the promotional eligibility list was posted with the first 5 candidates in alphabetical order, and then 6 on down in rank. I've seen that list in the past, probably more when I started. I don't know how we got out of it, but in speaking with the union directors at the time that was put into our collective bargaining agreement, that there was nothing limiting the Civil Service Commission from showing the ranking of people. The only thing that you were required to do, and that you did, you followed our collective bargaining agreement, which says that the first 5 candidates shall be listed in alphabetical order. And then if I could speak a little bit about when we were talking about eligibility lists, that section's not under the section for entrance exams. That is under eligibility lists as itself. In preparation of any eligibility list, I believe that the language speaks not to just an entrance exam. I believe it speaks to any eligibility list that you have certified.
Well, you know this is right, which is who's raw scores, so those are people who've taken the exam, correct?
Correct. And that's our interpretation of the language, and that's the basis of our grievance and my appeal today.
I see what you're saying.
The city is not following our collective bargaining agreement
Okay.
fully by that article, by not following all the rules and regulations of the Civil Service Commission.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Instead of separating the promotional from this, you're just saying the eligibility list should be posted openly, is what you're...
It should be available for public inspection,
okay.
like that section says.
Again, then somebody explained to me why there would be a contract provision that says the top 5 names shall be provided to the hiring authority in alphabetical order. If then the next requirement is you release the whole list in ranking. And why are we doing it in alphabetical order? Why was that bargained for and collectively bargained for and negotiated?
So you're saying that conflict?
I don't see how it doesn't. I mean,
But is the list a public record?
not right now, it's not. The only discussion of the list was in executive session by this body to confirm, to get you guys to the comfort level of your comfort with the scoring, your comfort with the seniority application, that the math was done correctly and the ranking was done correctly. So we didn't have to come back here every time there's a promotion and 6 moves up or 7 moves up. And in fact, we're at 6 and 7 right now.
They've already promoted?
They've promoted 1 and 1 individual withdrew. So they're down to 7 off that list. And the chief was given number 6 individually by Mr. Brown and number 7 individually by Mr. Brown when he made the request.
So this is leaning towards this, what they're called, ergonomics at fault.
Well, at that point, yeah, I don't know what we can say on that. I mean, this is the old, I lost the election, so therefore they didn't count the votes right. We don't count the votes, right? We didn't do the scoring. Ergonomics did it. And to say they had a lawsuit in 2016, so therefore they're wrong, I can't say whether they are or aren't. I don't know that we can ever... How do we get to the bottom of that? We didn't do the math. We didn't run the scanned test papers through the machine to determine them. They provided those scores to us.
The person that came in to check to see if his erasure marks were counted properly, did you find any issues with that?
No.
He wanted to make sure what he finally marked, that answer was counted versus what he erased. because his eraser didn't work that well, so he was satisfied that his answer was correct, or correctly recognized, I guess.
And that candidate did not pass by, I believe, less than 1/2 of 1 point. So if we find scoring inconsistencies that show that he did in fact pass by raising his score by at least 1/2 of a point, that changes everything. And I don't think it's unreasonable to review the
But he found that
scoring
it
and
didn't.
calculations.
He found that it didn't. His issue was that his eraser marks were not counted as an incorrect score, if it was correct. And he found that it didn't. And he stated, I'm fine, I reviewed it, I'm good. So,
With the erasure marks portion, because I've spoken with this candidate
And that
many
was his
times, and he was part of the reason for me requesting this.
And I guess here's the problem, right, is that, let's say you decide we're going to release this entire list with the scores. What does that mean? I mean, what candidate feels any different? Because they've all received their individual scores. They just haven't seen where they rank to Mr. Pfeiffer, where Mr. Pfeiffer ranks to another officer. I mean, that's what they haven't seen, is where they rank to each other. But they've had their scores. So they get their scores. How does that make anybody feel better that ergonomics did the calculations correctly wherever they're at? And I don't even know where they're located.
Right. You know, their argument is about, like you say, fairness, transparency. If they feel as though that's what the rule says, that it should be posted, I think it's more so, is that what the argument is?
Yes, exactly.
No, not what the, cause and effect of it would be, but just that we're not following the rules and posting it as they see per language when it comes to this.
And that's fine. That's not what it says, but that's fine. If that's what the majority of the three of you want to do, that's fine. I am not going to do it, because the second I do it, there will be a grievance that we violated the contract. Guaranteed.
Just as I say, I'd like to see that, 38-2, to see just what it states about for the commission. You guys familiar with what it says?
You're more than welcome to. It's the CBA. It's very simple, straightforward language.
there you go, Dave.
I'm just saying,
No, it's right here.
a copy of it, then maybe we can.
Do you want me to copy it?
No, it's 38, hiring, promotion, retirement, right there, section 2. That's what they're referring to. It just talks about the 5 names in alphabetical order.
You guys want to see it?
I think we should get a copy so we have it.
Yeah, we have a copy.
So we have it for future, too. What is it, 38-2? No, you go ahead and have a seat right now,
Okay.
Matt, till we
Thank you.
get this paper contract.
Is it proper for us to ask who took their name off the list?
I'm sorry,
Is it, are we allowed to know who took their name off the list? You said one person withdrew?
There was a, yeah, I guess you are. I mean, it was,
Well, these are the things we've been kept in the dark, okay? I'm getting phone calls rather than from Mr. Brown or yourself. I'm getting outside phone calls about appeals and stuff, and to this date, I have never heard from either of you two by email or phone call saying, hey, this has been happening.
you're getting phone calls from candidates on this list?
No.
Yeah?
So
Then who made the phone calls?
it's just the fact that the commission's still being held in the dark on a lot of issues. Even an email, if I would have known about this, ahead of time, we could have done some research ourselves. But here we are sitting now with the body, and we can't address it correctly because, for me, this is the first I'm hearing of this formally. I'm just saying, the commission's still being held in the dark on a lot of issues. We should have been told someone withdrew their name. Not that it matters, but we're part of the commission. We certified that list, the top 5.
I think it happened yesterday, but that's
All right,
fine.
that's fine there. Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
But this, the issue that there was an appeal coming, we were never formally advised of that.
Okay.
Okay, section 2.
Well, I think the email addressing the appeal was sent. It might have been sent to you late, but I think it was sent to the commission, at least that's my understanding. The other issue on the agenda was the release of the list, and that was the agenda item for today.
Well, for transparency reasons for the commission, after I seen Dave in the meeting and Michael at a previous meeting, I was informed that there was going to be an appeal. At that time, I contacted the chairman and said, I hear something about an appeal. And that's what he's referring to. He never received anything formally. Mine was just kind of, hey, I heard coming down the road.
And I don't know that, I mean, if Mr. Jasny, you're saying you never received anything? Okay, I didn't, my understanding was that when this appeal or this question first came in, then there was some communication with Mr. Pfeiffer and Ergonomics directly regarding scoring. There was discussion between Mr. Pfeiffer and Mr. Brown regarding the scoring and the application, and whether or not there seemed to be some satisfaction or answers that were provided, that there was some satisfaction level of, okay, I'm more comfortable with how this was done. And we're here today, and we're here today primarily because of the request to release the list, which, again, I believe is not our decision, it's your decision, because ultimately that's going to conflict with one of two rules. And that's just the nature of it. The rules conflict with each other.
Did you get a chance to read that?
Just so I can have clarification, the commission did not receive my email appealing the promotional exam.
You talking about this one?
Dated November 5th.
November 5th. Right. I saw this.
Okay.
I saw this when I came here today.
Okay,
Yeah, no, I didn't get
so you received that today?
I received that.
Okay.
You didn't get one at all?
But when you send that to the commission, does it go to City Hall?
Who's it addressed to? I don't know.
Actually, it was addressed to Sandy, Jeff Hayes,
Brown.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, the process that was explained on the on our score letters that were received from the city was that any appeals would go to Mr. Brown by email. But it's my understanding that the Civil Service Commission is the only person that has, or body that has authority to hear appeals.
So that's the coordinate the appeal. It's not that I was hearing the appeal.
No, I understand that. But yeah.
The perception you just gave is that I was trying to take the appeal authority away from the commission, and that is not the case.
I'm sorry,
That is to
I misspoke
coordinate.
then. Yeah.
That's to coordinate the appeal process with the commission.
Yes.
Because the commission, there are 3 of them, we have to coordinate schedules for them to come in for that. So that is why the appeal
Yeah.
letter has said that, and actually, that appeal language came off of prior templates that was used.
Yeah,
prior.
no, I agree with that. I apologize if I misspoke.
Guys, my thing is, and let's say if we would have been notified back on the 5th, I think it would have been fair to the commission to maybe get in touch legally with Dave, to maybe look at the Lexus to see about any previous discrepancies with NTN, against NTN. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying for us.
So what can we do? I mean, so they have a lawsuit, somebody filed a lawsuit. We've used Ramsey for years, which was a testing agency.
Right.
And people would take the test, send it to them, they'd give the scores back. I'm sure I could find a lawsuit against Ramsey somewhere along the line. I'm sure of it. I mean, there's lawsuits out there. I don't know that answers our core question, which is if people are questioning whether or not I got a 74 on this test and whether or not I deserved a 78 because they might have calculated something wrong, I don't know how we can answer, any of us in this room can answer that question. I mean, that's just throwing it against the wall and saying, I just think, in my opinion, it was wrong. What does that mean?
That's why we want to look over the information, and if...
But what are you
there's
going to
any-
get? A list of names to find out where Jeff Hayes
With
finished
scores.
compared to you. How
I'm
does
not
that
worried about
answer
that.
question?
If you want to put just numbers, that's fine. You can redact whatever you want from
Everybody
it.
got
We
those
just
numbers.
want the scoring. You don't even have to put the ranks. All we want is the scoring to review it, to feel comfortable that it was done properly, because ergometrics in the past has had scoring inconsistencies. Let me
That's not what
finish.
you're asking for. We don't have that, is what
Well,
I'm saying.
you're eliminating what I'm asking now, because you want to limit the scope because you don't feel comfortable with it. I'm not going to get the document, run up to the chief of police and say, here's what the ranks are.
Matt, what I'm saying is if you have the entire list that these three looked at, that will tell you nothing about ergonomics. That's my point. We didn't grade the tests.
Well, I can't tell you that because I don't know what the list looks like, because you won't release it.
I think
It goes, sorry,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
So my question is, every candidate, if you're representing all of the members of the body and all of the applicants who took the promotional exam, everyone received an individual letter. As a union rep, if you want that information of scores, I would think you would go to your body or to those applicants and say, hey, everyone, bring your letters in, let's check the scores, because they all have their scores. If that's the case, if what you're saying is the case, and all you want is scores, and we can redact and all of the information you just stated, if you are representing the entire body and everyone who took the test, then as the union rep, you can call everybody in and say, bring your letters, because we want to make sure these scores are correct. Was that done? But did you have a conversation with the entire body about, or all the applicants about what you are providing to the commission today?
I think we're confusing. The grievance was on behalf of everyone, because if there's a resolution or this goes to arbitration or goes further than that, ultimately, we want everybody who's been affected, if they have been affected, to receive that resolution. Okay? I shouldn't have to do all the legwork to figure out, talk to every single person on different shifts, working nights and trying to coordinate with day shift people on off shift to obtain a public record that it should be freely given already. And if ultimately we don't want to give it, that's fine. We'll go to a court of competent jurisdiction to further that issue, since Mr. Maester has stated that he's not releasing a public record. That's fine, but the fact that you're going to make me go through a legwork to go to everyone to try and figure out their scores, and we still don't see how it's calculated, I don't see how that's reasonable. When
So Matt, on your
hold
email,
on.
excuse
When
me,
the Civil Service Commission has certified a list that should be open for public inspection.
on your email dated November 5th, it says, the following is an appeal to the Twinsburg Civil Service Commission by myself on behalf of all OPBA members and candidates in regards to the police sergeant promotional exam. So back to my original question, if that is the case, did you talk to those members to say, we're doing this appeal based on these scores not being calculated correctly? Because they would have brought in their letters, because what you're asking for, every candidate has. Every single candidate has, which is their video score, their written score, their overall score. And that's the information that you are asking for.
But how was it calculated?
And how would you determine that if we release the full list?
Right.
I think that's Mr. Maestro's
So we
question.
basically have to reverse engineer it or speak more with ergometrics.
And so what I provided to you also during my explanation when you first asked me about this was that these scores were double-checked and checked by a certified public accountant who is our finance director. And at that point, you said, I am more comfortable hearing that now, knowing that that was looked over in that manner. So I'm just trying to get an understanding. I'm not here to fight as far as release the score, as Mr. Maestro says. That's up to this commission. I'm just trying to understand the reasoning behind. You asked the question, we provided an answer in regards to it, and told you it was checked, triple-checked, even checked by our finance director, who literally tried to break the scoring. That is her job. Nothing was found. So I'm just trying to figure out what you're really asking for, because again, you keep saying, well, we want to check the calculations. Every member of your bargaining union who you are appealing this on behalf has that information. without coming to the commission and asking for the full list, every member of the union has the information that you're asking for. I guess that's my question. That's my question.
I guess it just comes down to, I understand, and it did make me feel more comfortable that people have checked over it, but when the government tells me, trust me, we didn't do anything wrong, and then you're refusing to release information that we believe is public record, it doesn't really sit right with me and other members. And not every member is going to agree. I wouldn't expect somebody in the top 5 right now to agree. But it's not about a single person or a group of people in the top 5. It's about fairness and transparency for all of those people, even the people that failed. So that's the basis of my issue. All we want is fairness and transparency.
Right, the people in the top 5 don't want the test thrown out. I mean,
Right.
I think that's probably fair. I think anybody that failed the test probably doesn't want a list broadcast and shown, but, I don't know, I won't speak for them. But certainly the people in the top 5 that are in a position, or now the people in the top 7 that are in a position to get a promotion aren't screaming, throw this list out. And that's what's being asked, 2 things, right? 1, release the full list, and 2, throw the test out, I think is the second request here.
We haven't
is that
asked
what
to throw
you're
the test
asking
out.
to do?
We're not asking to throw the test out at this point. Obviously, if we find errors, that might be an avenue that we take, but again, that's up to the commission.
Okay, the commission's going to request more time on that public release. I will go on record with the commission to say the information provided to Mr. Brown from Ergometrics, we sat for a length of time in an executive session and were explained exactly how it was calculated, and I actually understood it, meaning on a spreadsheet. So all the information provided to Mr. Brown is all we had to go on. Now, it goes back to ergometrics, okay? And to try to find out what they did to finalize that score, like Mr. Maestro said, we don't even know where they're at. We have to rely on the company to give us the information based on the testing. And as Mr. Brown again stated, one person questioned his score, and it had to do with erasing and stuff. Everything else,
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable with the information Mr. Brown was provided to put the scores together with seniority, the testing and stuff is accurate and correct. So that's what we had to go for, and I think the commission will agree with me. We were explaining by the number, by individual. We went through every individual, how it was scored. To release that information, I'm uncomfortable with, because that would show too much value on where did I go wrong, where didn't go wrong, except for the fact that names were alphabetized for the top 5 as per your contract. So I think the commission needs more time to look over this public display of the entire list, and as Mr. Maestro has said, then it might turn back to the OPBA saying, well, now we're going to, you're violating our contract. In other words, we're stuck between a hard rock right now because of, it doesn't indicate that we have to release the entire list. We did what your contract said, top 5 alphabetical. But rest assured, the way it was calculated was all the information Mr. Brown had to go on, and we were shown that. So I would like to table the time for the public record.
Well, Mr. Jay, I think you summarized it very well, okay? That being, if the only issue that then remains is the issue of whether or not, because you did comply with the contract, and I think Mr. Pfeiffer's argument is the contract makes reference to the other rules of Civil Service Commission that they follow. So that's where this falls into, is the releasing the list falls under the other rules of the Civil Service Commission. And again, we're not invested in it one way or another if you, as a commission, feel the entire list should be released. We just did not feel comfortable because I had heard from individuals, I don't want the list released. I don't want to make that decision. The administration doesn't want to make that decision because we don't feel that that's in compliance with the contract, the spirit of the contract, or the way it's written. But I have no objection if that's the commission's decision.
Well, If you want to hear the spirit of the contract by the people that have negotiated
And I was in the room, you weren't.
Okay,
So
well,
nobody else is here.
in the beginning, you said you didn't know.
Ron's not here talking about it, or else he'd be here. Ron
Right,
Fusella was
right,
there,
he's-
he could come in and talk
Yeah,
if he
he's
wanted.
at the school. He has a job to do. I'm off on injury.
Excuse me, did everyone get a copy of this that you sent to HR?
No, that was my appeal. And then Mr. Maestros decided to send everybody the copy of the grievance that was filed.
And you only asked that because it says this speaks for all, examiners, I guess, your colleagues, and that's what
Yes.
I'm questioning.
Yes, as a representative of the entire union, this potentially impacts not only the people that took the promotion test, but has implications for the entire union based on who's promoted or just the spirit of the city not following our collective bargaining agreement. I understand that not everybody might agree, but I do things not for one person, but for the good of the union.
Can I just point out that we're still in the public participation
Oh.
section of the agenda? So there may be others who would like to speak to this.
Okay. So is there another person to speak?
Okay. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Greg?
Does everyone, before I start, does everyone have a copy of the grievance in front of them?
Grievance
No,
or
the grievance, Officer Kopnisky, would not go, that's a grievance under your contract, so it comes through the grievance procedure, it's not a civil service matter.
Okay.
But it related because it related to the release of the test.
Okay. Well, first of all, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And thank you for your time. My name is Greg Kopnisky, and I have had the pleasure of serving as a Twinsburg police officer for 32 years. In that time, I have served as a patrol officer, as a juvenile officer, as a DARE officer, as a school resource officer, and currently, and for 16 years, I've served as a detective for our department. I should also mention that for all 32 years of my service, I've been a member of our union, the OPBA. Yesterday, November 16th, I learned that I was named as a grievant in regards to the 2021 Police Sergeant's Promotional Exam. Upon receiving a copy of the actual grievance, which I would like to point out was not given to me by my union rep, Mr. Pfeiffer, despite him naming me in a grievance he filed. I was taken aback by this grievance, as I was never asked if I wanted to be named as a grievant in this matter. Never asked. Allegedly for my benefit. I also later learned that many other sergeant candidates were not asked if they wished to be named as grievance, nor were they made aware of that a grievance was being filed. Again, allegedly on their behalf. As an example, yesterday, the day I learned about this grievance and that I was named to it, I was able to speak with 7 other sergeant candidates who took the promotional exam. I asked all 7 if they were asked if they wanted to be named as grievance, and all 7 answered no. A few of their comments to me include, he mentioned it, but I never said I wanted to be part of it. Another comment was, I haven't talked to Pfeiffer about anything he's grieved, voted on, or stated. A third comment said, he did not ask me, no. And a final 4th comment was, I was never asked if I wanted a grievance filed. I only learned a grievance was filed after it had already been done. including myself, that makes at least 8 of the 15 candidates who are not asked if they wanted to be included as grievance in this matter. How then is Mr. Pfeiffer's written statement on the grievance form itself that this grievance was filed by him on behalf of all members who applied to take the sergeant's promotional exam a true and accurate representation? Still being confused by the filing of this grievance, I reached out to Mr. Pfeiffer through a series of emails where I basically asked him why I was included as a grievant without my prior knowledge and without my permission. His response in part read, "I spoke directly to 9 other candidates prior to coming to the decision to filing the grievance. I didn't understand what the term 'spoke directly to' meant. Did it mean that the 9 candidates, again out of a total of 15, were advised a grievance was being filed and 6 other people were not? Or did that comment mean all 9 were asked to and agreed to be named as grievance? Or was it just a jumbled combination of the two?" I asked Mr. Pfeiffer for further clarification, and he stated that union directors are elected to do business on behalf of and for the good of the union. Please listen to this statement. To involve every member or a specific class of member and every detail of union operations is impractical. I'm going to let that last sentence sink in for a minute. To include every member in every detail of union operations is impractical? I believe earlier Mr. Brown had asked Mr. Pfeiffer if the union members were asked, "What'd you get on your test?" Mr. Pfeiffer never answered that question. I can tell you I was never asked, but I did receive the results, as Mr. Brown stated. It is not every union member involved in this grievance filed by Mr. Pfeiffer. We have 26 union members, only 15 took the test. That would have to have been advised of a possible grievance being filed on their behalf. Earlier I stated 8, including myself, were not. Secondly, how is this logical? It was brought up earlier, why would I or the other 4 candidates who scored in the top 5 promotional exam, I was, in the top 5 as was certified by this commission, why would we want to be listed as unknowing grievance to this test, where obviously Mr. Pfeiffer was not listed in the top 5? And I think that point was brought out earlier. Why would the top 5 want to grieve this test, yet were named in the grievance? In conclusion to my comments about this grievance, keep in mind that it was filed by Mr. Pfeiffer, according to his paperwork, on behalf of all members who applied for the 2021 Sergeant Promotional Exam. 15 officers, again, including myself, signed up and took the exam. Yet according to Mr. Pfeiffer, he only spoke directly to 9 of the 15 candidates in regards to a grievance about the exam. In addition, according to Mr. Pfeiffer, and he said this earlier to the commission, it is impractical to include every member in every detail of union operations. Yet somehow, according to his email to me, somehow he found it practical he was able to be practical with 9 candidates and found it to be impractical for at least 6 candidates who were left uninformed. Apparently, and Mr. Pfeiffer made this comment earlier, well, what do you want me to do? Meet with midnight shift and do this? In my opinion, as a union member for 32 years, yes. That's what I want my union rep to do, to represent me, not just 9 of 15 candidates. So he says it's impractical for him to do that. Apparently then, it's impractical for Mr. Pfeiffer to text a union member, to email a union member, to make a phone call to a union member, or to simply meet with these 6 uninformed candidates while they're on station or working, even though he has done this in the past. In other words, how can a grievance be filed on behalf of at least 6 candidates who had no inclination as to what was going on with the promotional exam grievance? Speaking only for myself, and only on my behalf, to me, this makes the filing of this grievance completely false. And I would respectfully request that my name be withdrawn as a grievant. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Any questions from the commission?
I do have a question about how grievances are filed. Does the executive board of your union have to agree on filing a grievance? Or can just the president just say, I'm going to file a grievance?
Well, I honestly, in 32 years, I've never filed a grievance, so I cannot answer that directly. But what I can tell you is, on the grievance itself, it says it was filed on behalf of all members who took the exam, and that, as I learned last night, is simply not true.
Okay.
Well, if I could, the grievance form that we have agreed to use is a standard form, and then it has, whether it's an issue grievance, and this was filed as an issue grievance specifically related to Article 38, Section 2 in the contract. So as an issue grievance that the city has violated Article 38, Section 2, which is what we had talked about earlier. Because normally the commission doesn't get grievances because they relate specifically to the CBA, and those go through the process. But because this was related to conduct of the Civil Service Commission, that being the release of the 5 names alphabetically in compliance with that section, and then not releasing the full list, this was one that for the first time really crossed over into the civil services actions, because the grievance, as Detective Kopnisky says, on behalf of all the candidates, says the full list should be released because that's a civil service rule. So that's why. And the problem, when I saw that and recognized that, as you can see, there's 2 sides to this. So whichever way gets decided, if the city handled the grievance through their standard process and said, okay, we'll release the full list, first of all, you as a commission didn't do that, we're doing that, and we have other members of the bargaining unit that are going to say, wait, that violates the contract. And I think that's true. So that we were in a no-win situation, and that's why we brought it to you as a request to release the full list.
Any other further questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, anything further on public participation? All right. Ready to roll?
Are you ready?
Yeah. You ready? All right, we're going to move into the old business. I don't think we have anything, do we, Sandy?
No.
And now into the new business, the sergeant promotional exam request for release of the full list. Once again, Mr. Maestros, without us wasting time right at this moment looking through the civil service rules, at least I can't find it. Is there any verbiage anywhere in the state or city civil service rules that indicate we must release a full list?
The only argument is what was already expressed by Mr. Pfeiffer regarding the eligibility, or the entrance exam list, that language. When you get to the promotional language, there's nothing.
Can the entrance exam language, however, be interpreted as covering any type of promotions and/or further future tests?
I don't know that it would be crazy to interpret that way. I don't interpret it that way because of the difference of these two testing procedures, that being the promotional are all employees currently working, currently engaged with the city of Twinsburg that take this test, that come from a class of patrolmen that take this promotional exam. And my opinion is that the reason there's a difference between those two is that that list, fire has the rule of 3, police has the rule of 5. You are considering those candidates in alphabetical order, so there's no differentiation of I scored higher than you, or I was number 1, you were number 3. It takes that out of the equation. And if that's the intent, and I think that's a fair reading of the intent of why you would release the top 5 alphabetically, to release the full list is contradictory to that intent. And that's why I would look at those two things differently.
So could it mean revision and/or interpretation of the language between the two sections, possibly down the road being more clarified?
Oh, I think it has, right? It has to be. We have to clarify that, either in the civil service rules or in the collective bargaining agreement. It has to be clear.
Again, not literally tearing apart our bylaws and right now to try to find if there is anything specific with the release of the full list. I would care to table this. Do I have a motion? I got to look that over.
Yeah, I need more time on
I'm not going to
this.
make a decision based upon language from a union and/or from the city. Mr., are you comfortable with that?
I'm fine with that.
Make a motion?
I move we table this till we have a chance to look at it a little closer.
And the release of the list doesn't impact the list, right? I mean, if the commission is still comfortable that you've had an opportunity to review the numbers, review the calculations, and the list is, because the chief and the department are moving forward. An offer has already been made for one sergeant, and that sergeant accepted. The process is going forward. I would hate to put the brakes on all of this if that's what's going on, but I don't think what you're suggesting is doing that. I think that we're just talking about a release, a public release of the list, but if the list is still valid, you can certainly take your time and go through that process, sure.
Yeah, I don't want to slow no process down, but I also want to give fairness to request of, if this is to be publicly released down, we have to either look at our verbiage in our bylaws and/or clarify it enough so this doesn't come up again in future exams, both entrance and promotional.
That's fair.
We have a
motion.
Sorry, just to speak on the civil service rules and regulations and just clarify what I was speaking about. The section eligibility list,
It's 13.
you can't apply one but say that another part of that does not apply. If you look down in that same section, it's not within entrance examinations. You have X eligibility lists. You go down to C, disqualification of eligibility lists. It specifically speaks to employees.
Okay, what section are you in? Because C doesn't...
X eligibility lists.
Page 14.
Yeah, I know, but what section are...
D, or I'm sorry, C.
C, disqualification of...
Yep. And you see that the same section that talks about the preparation of the eligibility list that says that it should be available for public inspection. C, disqualification of eligibility list speaks numerous times talking about employees, the candidate for an entry exam is not an employee.
I think you're missing, you can't pull one word. You have to look at the word right in front of employee. Eligible employee? Eligible employee? Candidates on a entrance exam are eligible employees.
Again, I'm not going to try to speed read through all this. And we do have a motion on the floor. Thank you for your point. We do have a motion on the floor,
Yeah, second.
seconded by Leonard. Roll call.
Mr. Jasny?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
All right, any further new business?
I hate to go down this path, but I think since it's been brought up today is that it does appear that there's still an issue or an appeal pending by Mr. Pfeiffer. I'm not sure, now that I've heard the discussion, that it has been clarified, so it appears that there may still be an appeal regarding the entire test procedure. If the appeal procedure, or the appeal is still out there of ergonomics has been sued before and has admitted wrong calculations, I guess that's still hanging out there. I mean, is that still an appeal that, because I don't know how we solve it, but I'm just, it appears that that's still an appeal that's pending before the commission.
And I understand that. My concern is acting rationally and hastily on this without just clarifying the fact of this public record of the full list.
But that's a different issue, right? The release of the list, but as far as if the list is even accurate, 1 through 15, I think you mentioned earlier that the three of you are comfortable with the calculations, but we're basing those calculations on the numbers we were given.
Right.
And I think the appeal is, are the numbers that we were given accurate? I think that's the appeal. I don't know that there's an answer to that or if it's still an appeal, but it appears that it's putting this entire list and the promotional process in a cloud if that's still pending.
You know, excuse me, but real quick, what I see from this is not about doing away with the exam. They're just talking about calculations, you know, and the other part was the posting. So as far as the results, we certified those lists, so we're comfortable with the results. So I don't think, you know, it should hold up any process and keep them going forward.
I don't know, is this for executive board? Can we just go talk about it?
Oh, yeah, well,
We could do that.
executive rule.
Because you,
You can have an executive if it's related to litigation, personnel. I mean, you can have an executive session if that's what you determine, and it's related. I mean, litigation has been brought up already today, so.
so we, I mean, rather
threat of
than hold up the
litigation.
process anymore, should we just go talk about it?
We can. I mean, if you feel that based on the threat of litigation, that it's an executive session, you can adjourn into executive session to discuss pending or imminent litigation.
Mr. Pfeiffer, did you want to say
No,
something?
I just want to be available since you were speaking about my appeal.
Well, again, Mr. Maestros, I understand, you know, and I did state that we're comfortable with the scores, or the testing scores we receive from this ergometrics place. So the only way you'd resolve that issue, you'd have to go back to them,
Right.
you know, but I'm more concentrating on this public record of the entire list.
No, and I appreciate that, but that's different than, can we move forward with the list and work off the list, and can the chief make promotions based off the list, because there's still that separate appeal that Mr. Pfeiffer filed regarding ergonomics, reliability, and that's the issue that I think is hanging out there.
Okay.
Everything else wouldn't prevent the chief from moving forward. It's just whether this comes out publicly today, next week, 2 weeks from now, right?
Have you talked to Ergometrics?
I did reach out to Ergometrics, got their validity study for that promotional exam, as well as their scoring methodology for that exam. And that's where my questions arose.
Well, you know, Mr. Pike, before you go, I kind of did a little research myself on National Testing Network, and I did see in 2020 they did a class action settlement with some of the subsidiaries, but it wasn't with the integrity of the test. It was more so like fees and things that they were charging, you know.
The Cincinnati law, I'm sorry, not to cut you off, the Cincinnati lawsuit was specifically based on a promotional exam where candidates were given a rank by their city, and then there were questions about that. Somehow they came to the conclusion that the scoring was incorrect, and I believe somebody who was first, then with the recalculation went down to 25th, and that's where their lawsuit started. I'm not able to see all of the documents. All I've seen is news stories on it, because it was unfortunately in federal court, and I don't have access to those documents.
Right, you know, but I was only saying that because, like I said, when I see the intent of this appeal, it doesn't say to do away with the test results.
Correct, yeah, I don't want that.
So I want to be clear, okay?
Correct.
Because for some reason, we came in here thinking it was going to be, should we, you know, redo the test and get rid of it, or should we just post the list? But I think
Right.
we're a
Yeah.
little more clear now. We're just going to discuss more about posting.
Yeah, I do not want the test thrown out at this point. That's not my intent. The intent is to have a review to make sure that everything is on the up and up. Take another look, because obviously Cincinnati had them take another look and they found errors, and that's where they're at now.
Want to do the executive?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Can't remember.
Thank you, Matt.
Requires a motion.
I make a motion, we move to an executive session.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Jasny?
Yes.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0.
What is it, 9:20, 9:40? Set, Paul? Leonard?
Yes.
Okay, we'll reconvene the civil service meeting for today, November, what is it? 17th, and it is 10:18 a.m. All right. Having discussed the issues brought to the commissions regarding the appeal, Mr. Pfeiffer, and the scoring for the entire, or publicly receiving the entire list and scores, is that correct? All right, do we have any action or motions to be made?
I make a motion, we release the entire list.
I second.
Having heard the motion, any questions? Roll call?
Mr. Jasny?
No.
Mr. Neese?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes.
Motion passes 2-1.
Mr. Brown, you would take care of that request?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Mr. Pfeiffer, so with this request being granted, is there another appeal?
This should resolve our grievance as well.
Okay.
So The only other part of that appeal was to extend the appeal period until 7 days after receiving that document for review.
Yeah, that's not, we're not going to do that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other new business, Commission?
Now, just to be clear, so as far as the appeal, do we have to move to dismiss this appeal? Or
It's not up to dismiss it, for us to dismiss it, isn't it?
to rule again, I'm sorry, to make a ruling on the appeal?
I don't know.
Well, resolving the list issue takes that out of the equation. And I think what Mr. Neese just asked is that action being done, is there anything left out there from an appeal standpoint? I think Mr. Pfeiffer said no, other than the 7-day period, and it's been indicated that's not going to be extended, so my
That's correct.
understanding is there is no more appeal. Everything's been resolved.
That's correct. I'm okay with what the commission has done.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks. Right.
Okay, seeing no further new business, any miscellaneous business? All right, based upon that,
It might have been 9:30.
Sandy, when's our next meeting?
That's to be determined by you. We do need, according to Mr. Brown, we do need another meeting before the end of the year.
How does December 1st look for the commission? Wednesday, December 1st.
Yeah, that's,
Good for you too?
Yes, sir.
Do you need a motion for that or just schedule? Okay, so December 1st, Wednesday, 08:30 hours, we'll meet again. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
a second.
Roll call.
Mr. Jasny.
Yes,
Mr. Neese.
Yes.
Mr. Taylor.
Yes, here.
meeting adjourned 10:22 a.m. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.